If you're spiritual, but not religious, it's worth considering spiritualism as your spiritual pathway. Today, we're going to talk about the 9 first principles of spiritualism, but not spiritualism, the religion, but spiritualism without all the isms, without the religious dogma, rules, and morality. Because the rules of the game from a spiritual perspective are quite simple, yet not at all easy. I was trained as an engineer many decades ago, and there was a phrase that was KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And all young engineers, before they had any experience, were considered pretty stupid. A lot of ideas, a lot of ideals, but very little practical application. Today, we're going to talk about KISS, but keep it simply spiritual. Hi, I'm T.S. Hall, the Stoic Medium, and I am the spiritual director at Spirit360 Fellowship. Spirit360 Fellowship is an online spiritualist church where we help you rediscover your spirit, find purpose, and start thriving. We do this by helping you apply scientific methodology to your spiritual practices so you get real-world, tangible results. If you're ready to stop thinking about spirituality and start actually doing spiritual things, then consider knocking at our door and we will answer. So what are the spiritual first principles? Well, first of all, let's look at what a first principle is. A first principle is something that cannot be simplified any further. So it's the very foundation, the lowest common denominator, the core essence of a truth, of a spiritual truth, of a reality, if you will, but not the reality of our outward senses, not the reality of our three-dimensional experience of the world, but the reality of our psychic senses, our spiritual awareness. And spiritual awareness is simply being aware of the information that's coming from the energetic or energy realm or the psychic energy world. So that's what we're going to talk about today. You know, most of religion was created to control humanity. So created by man to control man, to help us learn the basic rules of living together in a community. You see, we're all animals. It's just animals that have evolved of this big brain, and this big brain allows us to have abstract thought, abstract thinking, symbolic understanding of the world. And once that became possible, a unique thing happened. We became self-aware. We knew that I was different than you. Me was different than they. And that moment, signified in geological and anthropological history, we stopped eating our dead. Because before we became self-aware and were able to identify with ourselves and others as a unique being, a unique entity, separate from all the rest, if Aunt Sally died, she was just a darn good, convenient fast food meal. Shortly after becoming self-aware and calling Aunt Sally, Sally, and Aunt Mary, Mary, and Uncle George, George, we started to bury our dead with the tools we thought they would need on the other side. Because early humanity was able to see when the physical body died, the spirit body continued. I get such a kick out of so many people talking about where's the consciousness, scientific community trying to figure that out. Well, the consciousness, your mind, the part of you that observes your thinking, exists in the spirit body. But when the spirit body merges and incarnates into the physical body, it takes on the seat of the brain and starts to operate itself within the three-dimensional constraints of our body. It's only through spiritual practice that we can begin to lessen our worldview, lessen our experience as directed by the three-dimensional reality and start to become spiritually aware of those things spiritual, of our psychic sight, our psychic knowing, and our spirit guides and teachers. So spiritualism was appropriated by religion. You know, and I'm not talking about the modern spiritualism that kind of got reignited or reborn with the Fox sisters and their mediumship abilities. Some debate whether they were real or not, or fake. But everything they talked about, I believe, is accurate and true. Whether or not they were proficient, competent practitioners, that's a different story. So when we look at the first principles of spiritualism, and you take the "ism" out of spiritualism, you're just left with spirit. So if you are able and willing to comprehend life from a spiritual perspective, a spiritual context, rather than a physical perspective and physical context, you just may be an old soul. We're going to talk about how Stoicism and three-dimensional reality maps onto our spiritual reality and just at the end of this video. But let's look at these first principles. First principle that I want to share with you, and this is one of our beliefs, is simply that God is. God was invented by man. When you consider that most people understand God as an entity who passes judgment, that's a very animalistic, humanistic portrayal of something that cannot be seen, cannot be drawn, cannot be understood. So God simply is. The second thing we want to talk about, and I've alluded to it earlier, is that you live after you die. But the physical body dies, the spirit body lives. The best way to think about this is allowing yourself to perceive every individual lifetime you've had as a pearl on a pearl necklace. The string that holds the pearl necklace together is your spirit. Each lifetime is a pearl. And if you think about that and you haven't gone, dude, really? But what about reincarnation? That's the third belief. And what separates Spirit360 Fellowship as an independent spiritualist church from most of the spiritualist churches out there. Because we believe in the philosophy of workability. What works? And just as our physical bodies and life on earth has evolved from very simple to very complex, with humanity being the apex of the evolutionary curve right now, your spirit evolves also. It's evolved from through the main line of evolution until it reached humanity, or manhood, if you will. And now it's begun its journey towards perfection. And that mechanism is reincarnation. Reincarnation allows us to come into the three-dimensional physical world to experience things we cannot experience otherwise. Certain things can only be understood when we see beyond the delusions of the outward senses and begin to see things from a spiritual perspective, a spiritual awareness perspective, allowing our psychic senses to inform our three-dimensional reality. One of the most powerful tools, and why I consider myself the Stoic medium, is the tool of karma, cause and effect, causation. Most people who believe in reincarnation believe that karma passes between lifetimes. That is, in fact, not true. And the logical reason I will give you for this, and we can debate this over tasty adult beverages at some point in the future if you would like, or inside of our school at Old Soul Academy where we actually teach you to do these things. If you are around someone that you knew as a baby, so you knew them as a baby and you go over to their house for some reason, and all of a sudden you have this memory of that young child who now is a young adult in front of you, spilling milk, making a mess, and then lying about the whole situation. I didn't do it. Not me. and you reached out and you started to spank them. What lesson would be learned by that young adult for punishing them corporally for something that happened 20, 25 years ago? Nothing at all. It makes no logical sense. No rational understanding would come from that. So there is no carryover between lifetimes. After you die in a lifetime where you may have incurred a great deal of negative causation, you go to the spirit side and you sort that out, and you realize the mistakes you made, and you hopefully learn from it. See, the thing about reincarnation as being a revenge for a poorly lived lifetime is a carryover of thinking that there's a God, an enforcer, some supernatural entity making sure that bad people are punished and good people are rewarded. But punishment and rewards are simply a three-dimensional reality that exists in the three-dimensional realm, not in the realm of spirit. And if you're like most old souls I know, and an old soul is someone who's had at least 25, 30, maybe 35 lifetimes as a human being, most of us are pretty damn good at inflicting our own self-punishment. So that's karma, cause and effect causation. You plant corn, you tend to corn, you harvest corn. You do good deeds, you sleep well at night, you know that you're a good person. Causation. Cause and effect. The next fundamental truth, first principle if you will, is that heaven and hell are states of mind here and now, and not some punishment or reward after you die. You see, if you're living a crappy life, being subjugated to the rules of tyrants and people who have all the money, in 2020, we'll call that the 1%, who control everything and want it all instead of just one bite. You tell the poor people, the uneducated, that if you be a good person and you don't kill too many rich people, you don't revolt, you don't rebel, then you'll get your just reward in heaven. And all these jerks will be punished in hell. A good way to keep people in line, isn't it? But if there is no God passing judgment and there is no carryover of karma between lifetimes, and we do reincarnate, and we do believe that there is life after death, that our mind and consciousness exist after the body dies, then heaven and hell just doesn't make a lot of sense. And if you're listening to this right now, somewhere inside of you, you understand that, don't you? It just feels right, doesn't it? If it doesn't, you're in the wrong place. You need to go find someplace else to get the answers you're seeking. If it does feel right, consider knocking at our door so we can answer and share with you ways you can actually stop thinking about being spiritual and start doing spiritual things. So heaven and hell are living in harmony or living in disharmony. If you live your life in harmony, if you master karma, cause and effect, where every action you take gives you the result you want and harms no one at all, including yourself, then that's heaven. If, on the other hand, you're a jerk and you keep on tripping over the same things and you're not learning from the physical lessons that you experience, that can be hell. If you can't learn to accept the reality of what's so, the reality of our three-dimensional world, and you want to resist it and you want to spend all of your energy and effort to make the world accommodate what you want, then that's hell. That's why I'm the Stoic medium, because Stoicism allows us to get profoundly related here and now in this moment to what's so, changing the obstacles from barriers into opportunities, getting profoundly related and connected to the fact that eventually we're going to die. Could be today, could be a long time from now, but you're going to die. And in the context of not being here versus being here, many things open up. In fact, many people report having near-death experiences, and during that experience, changing the way they see the world, their life, and they become more aligned with their spiritual values, their spiritual awareness. But the one thing I will give you as a caveat to a near-death experience, none of those people really died, did they? They may have come dangerously close, but they're still here, aren't they? So a near-death experience, while can create revelations and allow you to step into a more heavenly existence, isn't the whole story, because these folks never truly died. Evolution. Now here's where the rubber meets the road. Now I was trained as an engineer. I mentioned that earlier. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Now it's spiritualism at the crossroads of stoicism, of keep it simply spiritual. And evolution is the story of our three-dimensional reality, our three-dimensional universe, our three-dimensional existence. Life on Earth evolved from very simple to very complex. What was the creator? The creator is this infinite intelligence, this innate order of the universe that over millions and billions of years evolved life wherever life can take a foothold. It's just the way things work. That's the great mystery for most people, trying to explain how certain things happen a certain way. But if you want to control humanity, you don't want them to deal with facts. We don't want people to look at climate change and think that it's our own fault. We don't want people to realize that science-backed factual information works. It's much easier to have someone buy into a narrative that we create, whether it's political or religious or societal, than it is to truly sit down and objectively look at results. Again, we go back to karma, cause and effect, plant corn, tend to corn, harvest corn. Don't wear a mask, get exposed to someone that has coronavirus, get coronavirus. Maybe spread coronavirus before you realize you've got it, endangering others. Evolution is exemplified by this coronavirus. 100 years ago, we had a pandemic virus, and that pandemic virus caused a lot of mayhem. 100 years later, viruses evolved, mutated, changed, until we got the next super virus, the next one that is highly contagious and causes a great deal of mischief. Evolution continues, and will do so until our sun goes supernova in about 4.5 billion years or so. So whether you believe what I'm saying now or not, you got a little time to figure it all out. And that's the harshest lesson I've ever had to accept. You know, I can present information, and I've been really toying whether I'm going to be a teacher or I'm going to be a video editor. And here's the bottom line. I am a teacher. I'm not a video editor. I'm just going to be here in front of you. I'm going to share what I have learned and experienced for myself to be true. That truth is going to evolve as my skill set evolves. My understanding will evolve. But I'm going to share with you what I found to work for me, and I've taught others to have work for them. And you can accept it or not. You will or you won't. But here's the thing. If I had a perfectly edited video with no weird noises, you can't hear my swallow sound, I don't do any weird, stupid stuff, I don't have any technical errors, it wouldn't make you believe it anymore, would it? One of our high teachers made an offhanded comment. And that comment was, you know, if you're walking along and happened upon a frog next to a pond, and that frog started speaking the words of Jesu Christi, Jesus Christ, Jesus the Christ, would you not stop and listen? So if anything I'm saying to you today makes sense, rings true, feels right, listen to my words. If not, continue scrolling through YouTube until you find the answer you're looking for, something that feels right. Eventually, when you find something that feels right, you've got to make the same choice. Am I going to jump into and learn what they're teaching, or am I still going to be like a squirrel gathering nuts for wintertime? Putting those nuts away in a Dropbox or Evernote or my email folders or copious notes I've taken in countless diaries and journals that I never refer back to as my life drones on and on and on. 1 foot in heaven and 1 foot in hell. Never feeling like I'm in control. And what had me decide to separate the isms from the spiritualism was most of the religious things I've seen just don't work. But when you get firmly grounded in reality and you allow yourself to be here now in this moment, to train your mind, to learn spiritual skills, then life starts to change. But only once you give up merely thinking about something and start doing it. Unconditional love, my favorite thing. You know, the reason we incarnate so many times is mainly to learn this thing called the giving and receiving of unconditional love. Now, love is kind of a weird word. It's a 4-letter word, like work. But nonetheless, you can understand love and everything it means, not just romantic love, but love for humanity, love for all people, love for your brothers and sisters. And that happens as you begin to see people as who they are rather than what they look like. You know, there's that phrase, namaste. The spirit in me recognizes the spirit in you, or honors the spirit in you. Once you start to see information being conveyed from your psychic and spiritual senses, think about Matrix with all that Matrix stuff going in the background. So you've got the physical senses, but behind the physical senses, you've got psychic and spiritual information. So once you look at someone and you touch into their soul, their vibration, their spirit, the essence of who they are rather than what they look like, then you start to empathize, you start to understand, you start to love, you start to accept them in ways that can only be described as unconditional love and acceptance. Something worth striving for. And even though some days it's very hard, my personal practice is to find something that I love and can fall in love with each person whose path I cross. And these days, in a world of Karens, that can be quite interesting, quite difficult. But then I realize that they're going through some personal hell, trying to survive in an effort to thrive, and are simply demanding the world show up the way they want it to, rather than accepting the way the world is. That's called delusion. And delusion is our number one enemy on a spiritual path. Thinking that we are so powerful, so almighty, that we can make the world conform to what we want, rather than to play the game and jump into the flow of the way life is. Because here's the interesting thing, and think about a surfer. You know, you got this big, huge wave, and this guy's surfing. The guy surfing doesn't fight the wave. The guy surfing, after lots of training and development and practice, learns to live and coexist harmoniously with the wave, and leverages its power, leverages its beauty, its speed, to do some pretty miraculous things with their little surfboard. Imagine being able to go through life surfing circumstances, mastering your ability to exploit those circumstances, to make magic happen, to defy the odds. To me, that's a game worth playing. I don't personally surf, but I can see mastery when I watch a professional or very good surfer. Biggest thing I realize about most surfers when they're surfing, it's not very long between smiles and laughs. There's a camaraderie between surfers because they all know and respect what it takes to be a good surfer. There's a camaraderie amongst people who are spiritual doers, people who have exquisite control of their mind, who can heal their bodies, heal their lives, and walk a path that is true to them. Once you start to see people beyond the delusions of your outward senses, something interesting starts to happen. The hidden gem of spiritualism when I started my practices in the late 80s, early 90s, last century, not 2 centuries ago, I'm not quite that old, was this idea of healing. And healing was this underrated skill that I never thought I would understand or relate to. You see, I started out thinking that healing was the realm of the medical doctors and the medical system. And the more I understood about how my mind works, at a glacial speed, I slowly understood the relationship between our mind, our thinking, our belief systems, our worldviews, and our health and well-being. One of the things that opens as a door, as an opportunity, is really allowing yourself to have your body exemplify your belief system, allow health and well-being to exemplify your internal state. Now, what's interesting is a lot of people are very fit, very in shape. If you don't believe me, just go scroll around Instagram at all the models out there who are almost always naked with very little body fat and usually selling something. So physical beauty is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about health and vitality, vigor. Having your eyes smile at the same time as your mouth. Healing is the domain of spirituality. We'll talk in a different video about my opinions and feelings about Reiki. I personally am a Reiki master, and I think that most people with Reiki have missed the boat. I think they are thinking about Reiki a whole hell of a lot, but very few of them are doing Reiki. They put all of the responsibility on the person being healed for their healing, which it is their responsibility, by the way. The harshest lesson to learn about being a healer is to bless the person you're working with to their own devices to use that energy you give them the way they're going to use it. But too many people are not conveying healing energy in the most effective way possible, leaving the healing 100% to the person being healed, rather than intervening in the disharmony of the vibrations within their body. So, at Old Soul Academy, which is the teaching arm of Spirit360 Fellowship, both headed up by me, T.S. Hall, the Stoic Medium. Yay! If you haven't realized, I love making things much more complicated than I have to be. I adore that. My scheming brain is always trying to figure out, I got a live service starting in 30 minutes. In fact, you're welcome to join that. You can go to tshall.com/Stoic Medium events and you get a link and join us at our live interactive service, or you can go to spirit360.org and get your invitation there. But Spirit360 Fellowship is the online church. Old Soul Academy is the online psychic school, and it's the Old Soul Academy of the psychic and healing arts. If you're interested in mastering your psychic abilities, especially your healing abilities, that's where you would go. All right. One of the things you'll realize is I have a tendency to digress and go off on tangents, but that's kind of life, isn't it? The last and ninth first principle is Nirvana. Individual, personal, spiritual perfection. So the goal of all of your reincarnations, all of your incarnations, is to evolve your spirit until you become one again with the universe. That you understand everything there is to know. You've experienced it many, many times. You've mastered it. And you've reached Nirvana. Now, Nirvana is the end of the individual. It's where you release all of your energy back to the universe, and the entity that is you, both the pearls of your individual lifetimes and the string that's held them all together, which is your spirit, is relinquished, vanished, becomes part of the collective unconscious, if you will. Some people, when they reach individual spiritual perfection, decide to stay here and help humanity evolve. Those are what we would call avatars. And this is a spiritualist avatar and not some of the Far East avatars. Many of the miracles that you've seen described that it's hard to pinpoint back to a individual person are done by avatars. Avatars no longer need three-dimensional reincarnation. They can appear and disappear at will. That's not very common, but not at all unheard of. So that's it. God is. There is life after death. That life after death allows us to communicate with spirit guides and teachers and family and friends and loved ones. We reincarnate from simple to complex. All of your lifetimes before you became a human being, I consider that your spiritual gestation period. Once you became a human being, you were basically born, and now just like a baby spirit entity, you have to grow and evolve until you reach Nirvana. Karma, cause and effect, causation. Plant corn, tend to corn, harvest corn. Heaven and hell, here now, right now. If you're living harmoniously, heaven. If you're not living in harmony, hell. Evolution. Science is real. Science is factual. Objective reality. That's what the point of spiritual growth and development is to create an objective three-dimensional reality. That's the proving ground. That's the science lab. That's the reason you incarnated, to bring about results that are aligned with your spiritual development and your spiritual awareness in three-dimensional reality. While life is lifing, can you learn what you need to learn? Healing, one of the hidden gems of becoming psychic and developing your psychic abilities and your mediumship abilities. Nirvana, the end game. You're here until you understand everything. And some people get really upset about whether or not Nirvana makes sense. But I want to ask you a question. If you had been attending kindergarten every year for the past 50 years, would you not find something better to do with your time and energy and resources? Imagine that you've done everything there is to do in the three-dimensional physical realm, in this earth plane. 50 or 60, the equivalent of 50 or 60 years in kindergarten. Would you not find something better to do? Maybe. All right. Which of these do you like the most? Which of you think I'm totally full of crap on? Leave them in the comments below. I'd love to have a conversation on a dialogue. The second thing I really like you to do is really feel, really allow yourself to feel if this feels right. Experience if it rings true for you. Allow yourself to be here now. Stop what you're doing. Drop your awareness, touch stillness. Come back up just a little bit and know if it feels right, if it feels true. If it does, give us a like. Share this with someone who you think could benefit from it. And subscribe to our channel. We put out spiritual lessons on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. They're not going to be highly edited. They're just going to be me teaching. Teaching everything I know, holding nothing back. If you have a question you'd like me to address, put it in the comments below. I'm happy to answer any questions. Somewhere in the description below, eventually you'll find a link to where you can connect with us online and spiritually. Connect with us spiritually online. That's a Freudian slip. Yeah, social media is definitely not spiritual. It leverages every mechanism in the physical body and gets you addicted. And I'm speaking as an addict. Again, if this makes any sense to you, you need only knock. The way you knock is you go to spirit360.org, get your invite, join our subscription list. You can subscribe here, and we'll teach you everything we have to know. But here's the main thing and the bottom line I want you to take away from this. Everything you learn, you will learn by understanding yourself, by going within to touch your spirit, that part of you separate from all the isms of life, that part of you that's been here before, the part of you that knows that what I'm saying rings true or not. Of course, if it doesn't, you've long left this video. You scrolled on to find something more entertaining, some other answer, some other hack. But as it was told to me, your spiritual and psychic gifts will be the most difficult gifts you've ever developed in your life. Is it worth the effort? I think so. Until next time, I bless you and leave you with whatever you've taken away from this video. And remember that spiritual is as spiritual does. See you next time.